Hi there, this video is designed to help you complete WRS, Work-Related Skills, Unit 2 at a senior level. If this is not the level that you are completing, you need to leave this video and find the appropriate one. The purpose of WRS2 is to effectively combine Work-Related Skills 1 and Personal Development Skills Unit 1 together so that you are demonstrating planning and work-related skills to complete a project, but also doing associated risk assessments to make that project safe. This booklet is fairly large, but there's nearly half of it which is work diaries, so don't be alarmed. The booklet you have is green. The one I'll be speaking to you from is white, so don't be alarmed with that change. You start with WRS Unit 2 with outcomes 1 and 3, starting on page 1. Page 1 to 6 requires you to brainstorm potential project ideas and to do this in a group. But in this shutdown sort of environment, you can either do that online or your group's going to have to be the people you live with at home. But page 1 starts with this. You just need to list the people in your groups and then come up with possible project ideas. For each of those project ideas, you need to fill in one of these boxes for them. So what is the idea? Research it. Why is it necessary to do that project? What is required to complete the task? What are any OH&S concerns? How will it be innovative? So that's sort of pushing the boundaries, I guess. How will you push the boundaries through this project? And a rough estimate of costs. You need to do one of those for each of the project ideas you had. So on page 3 and 4, there are more of those, and 5, more of those. Once this is done, on page 6, you need to select the project option which you think is the best and justify why, and then present that to a staff member and a peer. This can be done via email, so don't be alarmed about that. From page 7 to page 17, you're doing a project plan. This is a decent amount more detailed than previous plans you've done. This is a feasibility plan to determine whether it is a possibility. So as I said, it starts on page 7. You need to tell me what the aims of the project are and how it's going to benefit the community. Remember, the community can be larger than just you guys. It could be the school, it could be home, it could be the computer gaming community. The community is up to you. After that, we need a budget. So materials or resources needed, rationale as to why it's needed, how many of each you need, and the total cost. Add all the materials and resources you need in there, and then that will give you your total budget figure. From that, you need to tell us the steps you are required to complete and when they're going to be completed by. So the step, explain why that step is necessary, and then tell us when you aim to complete it by. There is a full page of this so that you can be as detailed as you possibly can. Assume we know nothing. After that, you need to set at least 5 measurable milestones which we can celebrate when you get there. So it's just something that you can celebrate. So you might have got all the planning done, you might have done all the pre-work done, you've got the site clean, you've dug the holes, whatever it is. So tell us what the milestone is, how will we be able to tell that that milestone has been met, and the date you aim to achieve that. As it says, you need to have 5. From there, we need to look at the resources. So this is similar to the budget, but tell us what the resource you need is. Again, could be tools, etc., and tell us why it's needed. After that, technology that is required. This could be ICT or it could be just general technology like a drill, and explain why it's needed. Then tell us what the social and ethical considerations for the responsible use of technology within the project are. So how are you going to use them socially and ethically responsibly? From there, you're up to the risk assessment that you need to do. This is a risk assessment as you've previously done one, but you're reintroduced on page 11 to the hierarchy of controls. Remember, the most effective form of danger control to the least, and the risk matrix, which will help you create your risk assessment. Your risk assessment starts on page 12. Again, it's exactly the same as what you did excuse me, for Unit 1 work-related skills. Tell us what the risk is, the detail of the risk, how you found out about it, and the potential impacts. To create the initial risk rating, you return to your risk matrix. So your consequence could be minor injury, but it's very likely, so therefore the risk is high. And you write minor injury, very likely, high. Then you tell us what you're going to do, who's going to do it, and when it's going to be done by, and then go back to that risk matrix and do it again to see what risk remains. So you could have a minor injury, but highly unlikely, so your risk is low. As a result, your risk as a whole has gone down. There are 4 of those boxes. You don't need to fill them all in, but you do need to do as many as you need for as many risks as you identify. From page 14 to 17, it asks you to identify other issues which you have identified beyond OH&S. So these could be disrupting the flow of traffic. It could be, running out of materials, not being able to advertise, something like that. But tell us what the issue, hazard, or risk is, the consequences for that, and the conditions under which they may arise. So you might only have an issue when there's a heap of rain, for instance. Then tell us your potential solutions, strategies, or processes to minimize that risk, and then which one are you going to choose and why. There are several pages for you to do that on, because there should be several potential issues. Why you're being asked to do this is a wise project manager will be able to identify risks before they happen and come up with a plan for that contingency, so that if it does happen, they can just move on rather than having to think on the fly and potentially not do things as well as they possibly could. You need to do the same. For page 17, returning again to the project, who is going to be doing something, what is their job, and why is that job required? After that, is the project feasible or achievable, and explain why? And why should completing this project be considered a community priority? Excuse me. Why is it a priority for the community? Once this is done, you need to present this to an audience. Again, in this lockdown environment, it's going to mean that you need to record this and send it through. You need to send it through to a staff member. You need to send it through to a peer. And you need to send it to a stakeholder or someone within the industry. If you're doing a project at home, that could be your family, and you show it to them. And then you need a self-reflection. We need to see your plan so that we can go through it and see whether it does meet the requirements of the level of work required for Work-Related Skills Unit 2. Make sure you get that to us before you start so we can approve it. On page 26, you need to reflect on the feedback you have received. So what was their feedback and what can you take from it to improve your plan, ×2, and then adjust your plan accordingly so that it is as strong as it possibly could be. Now this is done, you need to look at some employability skills. Thinking about your project, you need to brainstorm some employability skills that you will evidence in it. So making a sequential plan, teamwork, communication, the physical work. What are some things that are going to help make you employable? For each of these, you need to write them down here. So the employability skill is communication, and how will it help? And just explain to me, how will it help complete the work-related activity? There's enough of those so that you can fill them in for each employability skill that you have identified. On page 29, you need to start prioritizing those employability skills from the most important to the least. So employability skills from the most important to the least, and tell me why it's been prioritized into that position. You now need to present that to a staff member and peer so that we can give you feedback. Email that through and that is fine. Now that's done, you need to assess your own employability skills. These are some measures that we've identified as things which help make people employable. What you need to do is look at each one and think about yourself and tell us whether you demonstrate that skill often, sometimes, or rarely. So, for instance, solving problems in teams. Do you do this often, sometimes, or rarely? And just tick the one that is appropriate. You then need to get a staff member to do the same for you. Once this is done, you're up to doing the actual project. The project, as per normal, requires you to do the physical work and then to do some work diaries. These work diaries are significantly larger than what you've previously done. There's 3 pages of a work diary for each day of work you need to complete. And they're broken up into sections. So you need to do one section, the pre-section before you start, the post-section afterwards, and then there's a feedback section that you need to get after that. On top of this, if you are doing this in isolation, you need to make sure you take some photos of you doing the work so we can authenticate that the work is yours. So these work diaries start on page 32 and go through to page 70. As I said, there's 3 pages, but firstly, the pre-work. What do you hope to achieve today? What are your priorities? And what organisation is required for them to do that? Who is going to do that work? So this is a daily planning sheet. After that, you got post-work. What did you do today? Because it may be different to what you hope to do. And what self-management skills did you evidence today? What technology did I use? What employability skills did I evidence? How could I improve upon these further? How did I work with others today? How effective was working with others? What challenges were there in working with others? How did I take into account others' individual skills and attributes? What did I do to manage the project today? Did I negotiate with others? Then you need to receive feedback from someone. So, feedback, how did the student work today? How did the group perform today? Then they need to sign it. You need a stakeholder to sign that too. So again, that could be someone at home. How did they work today? How did the group perform today? Name and signature. Critical evaluation is you reflecting on everything now at the end of the day. On your own reflection and on the feedback, how can you personally improve next time? How can you ensure the group performance improves? And how did the employability skills you evidenced today help complete the project or develop your skills? What do you need to adjust as a result of the feedback received? So it's a fairly considerable thing that you need to do. As a result, you need to make sure that you do not let it build up. You need to make sure you do those every day at the very least, that you are doing the work. Don't let them build up. From there, you'll finish your project, and then you are up to outcome 6. Outcome 6 is a bit of a standalone outcome. It's on pages 71 to 75, and there's a good summary of what you need to do on page 71. But you need to prepare, plan, and deliver a presentation on your project, which you have now finished. In that presentation, you do need to use ICT, so I would recommend a PowerPoint. And for that, you need to include the following things: the development or importance of the project, the planning and implementation process of the activity or project, planning for OH&S and other issues, evaluate and analyse the feedback gathered throughout the activity or project, the final outcomes of the activity, and how the activity went as a whole. This needs to be presented to a staff member and peer, and you need to get feedback from that. But to help you with that, there's a planning section which starts on page 72, and it's just got some guiding questions which will help you make sure you meet the requirements. After that, we have the reflections from the staff member, a peer, and then a self-reflection. As it is a PowerPoint presentation, we expect you to email that through to us, along with your recording of your presentation of that, so that you can get the feedback you need. Once you've done that, you've completed Work-Related Skills Unit 2 for the first time. You need to complete it 3 times. We have allocated you 5 weeks to do this. As such, we would recommend you start the first one at the start of week 6 in term 2, so that you finish the first project in that week. In that term. After that, that allows you term 3 split in half to complete the other 2 activities that you need to complete. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, stay safe.